Hello and welcome to Film Lovers. My name's Sonia Chung. I'll be talking to people who work in the film industry and who are also avid film lovers. Today I'll be talking to actor and stand-up comic. He's also Mark's friend, David Whitney. Hi, David.
Good day.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Enjoying this Indian summer. I got all dressed up for it to be winter out there today, and
I know. We had a really bad summer as well, didn't we? So
yeah, it was.
It
was pretty miserable, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I think we're making up for it now. It is because I put my coat on and I was boiling when I went out earlier. So it's quite nice just to wear a t-shirt outside still. So you are Mark's friend. He put me in touch with you. We spoke to him a few episodes back. He's lovely. And you are also living with him, you just told me.
Yeah. It turns out that a stand-up comedian who doesn't work for a year due to a pandemic does no longer in Hampstead live.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us about yourself, how you started? So basically you're an actor. How you got into your career. So basically how it started, how it evolved, and what you're doing nowadays, basically, and how the pandemic affected you as well.
Yeah, well, I've been an actor and stand-up all of my adult life, really. I went to the drama centre when it was in Chalk Farm. When I went there, it was a little independent method acting drama school that was set up out of rebellion out of RADA and Central School of Speech and Drama in the 60s. Sorry.
That's right.
The RADA and Central refused to teach method acting, and there was a walkout, and formed the drama centre. Became like the first sort of Russian stroke American style method acting drama school in London. I didn't go there in the 60s, so I went in the late 90s, and had a relatively nice early career doing sort of regional theatre and fringe theatre, which, theatre was my first love. I really wanted to sort of end up at the National and the RSC. They were my dreams. But after a while, things didn't seem to be going anywhere. So, I was playing the same regional theatres and fringe theatres. So just out of a sort of a moment of rush of blood to the head, I decided to have a trip out to LA just to see what everybody else was talking about. I love film, but it wasn't really my first love. It wasn't why I went to drama school.
Okay.
But I had a friend at drama school who was doing a lot better than me and had some contacts out there. And when I got there, he set me up with a meeting with his agent. His agent thought I was a stand-up comedian because my agent at the time in London was more famous as a stand-up comedian agent than as a acting agent. So
right.
This guy at William Wallace just assumed I was a stand-up comedian, and he kept on going on about how impressive it was. So I felt like I couldn't correct him that I wasn't a stand-up comedian. And before I knew it, he had booked me a gig, and I had to either do the gig or tell him I'd been lying. So luckily it was in Beverly Hills, and as a relatively posh English person, it was quite an easy gig. So it made me feel like I could do it. And then I came back to London and went, oh, I'm a stand-up comedian now. And then really struggled for a few years.
Was that the first time you'd been a stand-up then? Literally because you'd quote lied.
Yeah.
You must have been terrified.
Yeah, it was quite terrifying. Yeah. The first couple of years of stand-up are all quite terrifying, but I think a lot of comics have this sort of like fairy tale story about how good their first gig was. You never want to catch a comedian on his second gig. That's gonna stink. I don't know. The gods let you have one on the chitty to make you come back. Otherwise, if it was horrendous the first time,
you would have gone back.
Yeah. Was like it alcohol, just chasing the early high?
Was it a big audience, or was it quite a small?
Yeah, it was the Friars Club in Beverly Hills. I think there was about 80 people there. So it was a long time after that I played to 80. You know, when I came back to London, I was playing to like, you know, 8 members of the public and 12 stand-up comics in a room above the pub for a long time. You know,
Mm.
you do. So I didn't really. And the thing is the thing about bigger audiences is they are actually easier because if you're playing to 8 people who have been flyed in the street, paid their fiver to come in, mainly to get out the rain. And as soon as they see the room and they realise they're the only 8 people there, and they think that they've made a massive error in walking in that room, making them laugh is almost impossible.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, touch wood, I walk into, professional comedy clubs that are set up correctly. Places like Top Secret in Covent Garden.
Yeah.
You have to be pretty terrible to have a bad gig there.
Really?
Because the setup's so perfect for comedy to flourish. It's the ideal circumstances, the ideal breeding ground for laughter.
Mm.
So it's if you have a bad gig there, you should probably hang up your mic. But yeah, those early years trying to make in a bar in Camden Market with people that have literally come in for a free gig, and they've come in because they're knackered having walked around the stables market for 3 hours, and half the audience are Spanish and don't speak very good English, and you're trying to make them laugh with the
They don't
references
understand.
to English culture. It's I said somebody the other day, people send clips of when they're trying to get gigs, and they send, back when I started, people just had to take references and stuff, and now obviously everybody uploads everything to YouTube and you send it around, and you do see, these people, new comics using Top Secret being a perfect example of, their day in the sun and going, look how much I made these guys laugh, and yeah, but anybody could have made those people laugh.
Yeah.
Come back to me when you can make a 1/3 empty room in a casino laugh with terrible lighting. Half the audience have got their back to the stage, and you've got to do 45 minutes because
that's cringeworthy.
Because the organisers need to keep the people in the building between dinner and the beginning of the poker game. Then you earn your money.
Yeah.
Then we find out if you're funny or not.
So what happened from there? So you went out to LA and you did a few stand-up gigs.
No, I only did the one in LA, then came back, learned my trade
as an
actor. A couple of years. Oh no, this is art. Sorry, I went drama school.
Okay. Before
drama school, classical regional theatre, Glasgow Rep, Manchester, lots of Henry V, Antony Cleopatra, Southwark Playhouse, doing the fair stuff like. Then went off to LA, did that one gig. Thought, I found a new thing. Came back to London and had 2. I wouldn't say miserable years, but they weren't miserable at all. They were incredible fun. Mainly traveling around with Mark Brown, who you've had on the podcast, going to bizarre rooms. There was one in South London called the Wibbly Wobbly Boat, which was on a boat. Funnily enough, I think you can work that out.
Yeah,
and it was absolutely fucking terrible gig. It was mainly Millwall supporters in Surrey Quays on a boat drinking cheap lager, and you were meant to have. I think you were meant to do 7 minutes, but the time was completely at the behest of the absolutely smashed out of his brains compere, who either would try and get you off seconds after you'd taken the mic because he'd thought of something he wanted to say, or he'd wander away from the stage to go and get himself another drink, and you'd have to just keep going until he came back. To an audience of Millwall fans who enjoyed seeing comedians having the worst night of their lives. So
Oh,
it was, so it was 2 years of gigs like that, and then things slowly started to get better. You start to get into the bigger clubs like the Comedy Store, and back then Jongleurs and the Glee clubs, and places like the Backyard Comedy Club in Bethnal Green, where I'm lucky enough to perform quite a lot. And then you people get to know that you can do a job, and they trust you with longer stage time, because you start off with 5 minutes, and then if you do well with 5 minutes, they give you 10, and then when you get 20s, then you start to. I think I was coming back from Edinburgh Festival 2007, I'd gone out to LA in the autumn of 2006, done that one gig, come back, done 6 months of the most atrocious gig, 6-8 months, and they came back from Edinburgh having done the Hackney Empire Best New Act of the Year award, that final in March, and then their showcase show at the Edinburgh Festival. And then I came back and people were starting to book me for 20 minutes.
wow.
It's such a huge jump, because up to then all the spots were sort of 7 to 10 minutes, and suddenly you're doing 20,
Yeah.
and it becomes a whole different beast. So yeah, that's the lineage of my stand-up.
Okay. So what happened? So did you get back into theatre and film sort of afterwards, or along the way as
Yeah.
you were doing that?
So for a few years, I just did stand up. I was just,
Okay.
I was obsessed with it, and it was my new toy. And also, not so much now, but then there felt like there was a really fair meritocracy to it, because unlike acting, you can be the best actor in the world, but if nobody knows about you, if nobody, you haven't got the right agent putting you in front of the right casting directors, if the right roles don't come along, you can just be, you sit around, you can go and try and get yourself into fringe theatre, but, and I've done plenty of fringe plays where, amongst the whole cast, hundreds of letters have been sent to invite industry to come and see them, and just no one comes.
Yeah.
Whereas with stand-up, there was a very clear, okay, you can do 5 minutes. If you're shit, we'll never let you back in the building. If
So
you're good,
either
we'll give
way.
you 10
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah, but it's sort of like immediate, and
Okay.
the sort of the fruit of your efforts are rewarded so much quicker, and it feels so much more. That's not my delivery that I.
Oh, that's all right.
Do you want to pause it for a second?
Yeah, let's pause.
Okay.
So, hello, David, again. You went away to quickly go and answer the door because you had a delivery.
The inevitable Amazon delivery.
I know.
Shouldn't really give Jeff Bezos any more money, but.
So you were saying, so if you carry on from where we left off before your delivery came.
Sure. So I was saying, it just felt fairer in the fact that the harder you worked, the better you got, and the better you got, the more reward you got. And so I really bedded into doing stand up for a good sort of, I think, about 5 years. I didn't really even look for any acting work. Was it as long as that? Maybe I can't remember exactly. But I then I came back to theatre. I did a production of Journey's End in Bishop Stortford, where I met Eddie Arnold, who has been in many of the films, took the 2 feature films that Mark Brown and I have made together. And then, I did a couple of plays back to back, Two Gentlemen of Verona and Noel Coward's Hay Fever, and it felt nice to be back in the theatre. Now I'm able to sort of like, jump between camps. I can go off, do a couple of days filming if an acting job comes along. If a play comes along, obviously you have to evaluate the longer commitment of, how long is it going to take me out to stand up, and is the production exciting enough for me to want that, and you can evaluate it on merit, which is it's a stronger position. I think it's a really good thing to think about as a graduating actor coming out of drama school. It's a really depressing position to be just in other people's hands. So if you can find your own body of work, whether that's making podcasts, whether it's doing stand-up comedy, whether it's doing sketch comedy, improv, where you can build up your own body of work,
Well, it's good to
and
have
that
another creative outlet, isn't it? Because, like you
exactly.
said, you're basically in the mercy of other people, and a lot of the
Mm,
time, when you do audition, you won't hear back, and then that's your answer. But then
mm,
you don't know. Whereas,
mm,
like you said, with your stand up, you get an answer right away, and then you know
yeah,
either way.
yeah.
So you're kind of like left, like going. So, so
Mm.
now what? Do you know what I mean? So in a way, it's good to have another way to release your creative frustration.
Exactly, definitely, definitely. So now my phone's going. I do
That's
apologise.
all right. Do you want to quickly
Just turn it
stop
off.
that?
Okay.
That's all right.
Mm. The old mum
Oh, poor mum. So you were
call
going.
about.
So, so you were saying,
Yeah, well, yeah. So yeah, now it's nice to just be able to do, a bit of everything and be available for all the different strings of the bow and jump between stand up and acting, and you know, uh, variety is the spice of life. Today I was in the West End on the theatre where they're doing Mamma Mia,
okay,
teaching the new cast or the new member of the cast how to play the bagpipes, because they have
oh
a
wow,
moment where the guy picks up the bagpipes. So it's nice to be able to have variety and different ways you can earn a living. Otherwise you can end up having to go get a day job. That day job will take over your life. What you get, that one good audition, the first good audition that you've had for months, and you have to go beg some manager to have the afternoon
yeah,
off. If they do let you have the afternoon off, or you have to pull a sickie, then are you prepared, because you've been doing 8 hours a day
yeah. It's
in
very
a
hard.
call center, or doing whatever working in a shop or a pub or whatever you're doing, and then you turn up and the other people in the waiting room are all professional actors, and they're there all the time. you know
Yeah.
they're they're doing auditions, and they're preparing. When they're not in an audition, they're preparing for an audition. When they're not working, they're preparing
Mm.
to work. um, and it's why this becomes very much the profession of the privileged, because you're expected to do so much for free when you start, and
Yeah.
you and that again, it means people that are privately wealthy get to do it, and then they go, oh yeah, so and so, they got commissioned because they took this show to Edinburgh. How many times did they take that show to Edinburgh? I think it was 5 years in a row. Okay, so how much did they plow into that show year after year, playing to nobody, getting
Yeah.
2-star reviews, and then after 5 years and best part of 70 grand, somebody went, oh, let's put it on the telly. And yeah, well, I didn't, it's I don't have 70 grand knocking around
No.
for a career. I don't have 5 years. I'm not privately, right? So being able to do things that keep you out, that keep you in people's line of vision, by doing stand up, going to the Edinburgh Festival, doing these things that you're reminding people of your existence, and also you're being creative. And it's more interesting when the work is its own reward. If you're doing a play because you think an agent will see you in it, you're probably not going to have a great time, because the
Mm.
chances are an agent won't come, and then you'll think that the whole process was a waste of your time.
Yeah.
Where if you do a play because you really want to do the play, one you'll probably be more interesting in it, because you're doing it for the right, because you've got passion for the work. So you'll therefore be more attractive if an agent or a casting director were to come and watch it. And two, if they don't come, then you've still had a great time, because you did it for doing the play.
Yeah.
For uh, when the work is its own reward, then you know, of course you want a good career, of course you want to earn money, but those things are oftentimes out of your control. The thing that you can control is that you're constantly building some work. So whether that's as this listed comedy or the podcast, or
Mm.
whether you're making short films. Everybody, you can make a movie on an iPhone now.
Yeah.
So um, just anyone can go and do it. So just go and do it. And then when you meet somebody who a film director or something, and they say, "What have you been doing?"
Mm.
You don't have to say, "Oh, not much." You go, "I made this yesterday.
Yeah.
Here's a short film I made.
Yeah.
Here's some stand up I've been doing. Oh, I've got
Yeah.
this podcast." And then that can stop the spiral into giving up.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what
Well,
happens?
it shows you're still trying to keep going, aren't you? And you're still trying to show your enthusiasm, and you're not like, because it can get easy to kind of get stuck in the rut after a while when you go through periods of nothing. Then you kind of sort of give up, really, don't you? And then it kind of spirals down, down, down. So it's definitely important to have, like you said, various outlets for your creative vision. So I've got a few questions for you. So how did you meet Mark? Did you meet him through the Fringe Theatre? Because he told me he did that.
Yeah, we did a play together that he'd written back 2005 at the Old Red Lion. And then we did a bunch of plays together. And then when I started doing stand-up, the first play that I did with him, people thought he had written for me, but he hadn't even met me when he wrote it. So when I started doing stand-up, I gave him a call and said, "Well, people think you write for me anyway, so come and help."
Yeah.
You can't. I don't think you can really write somebody else's stand-up because it really has to be their voice. But it was really helpful for the first couple of years having a creative partner coming to the gigs, telling me what he thought worked, telling me what didn't work, and giving me ideas. So it's quite a lonely pursuit being a stand-up. And those first years when you're trying to find your voice, it's
very hard, isn't it?
Definitely helpful to have a friend to come with you and
be on the other side,
in the right direction.
Yeah.
So we 2005. Then we did a bunch of plays together, did a bunch of short films together, and then in 2015 we made Guardians, which is a feature film, which I'm sure he talked about a lot. But that's now available on Amazon and Hulu and Sky and all the main streaming places, pretty much everywhere apart from Netflix.
Another question I want to ask you: what's the difference between the film industry, or for you as an actor, working in a film in England compared to working on a film in the US? Are there a few?
I've never been lucky enough to work on a film in the US.
Okay. But from what you saw of maybe of actors when you were doing your stand-up comedy, was there any?
I think we're becoming a little bit more like them. I mean, back in the day, all this that I've been talking about essentially cross training and doing different things. There was a bit of a snobbery about that in Britain before. They were like, "Well, what are you? Are you this or are you that?" Whereas in America, if you've got a meeting with a big agent, they expect you to have an idea for a sitcom, that you brought a pilot for a TV series with you. They expect you to be trying to get projects off the ground. They don't expect you to just be an actor. They expect you to be a creative person in general. Whereas over here, if coming out of drama school, you had a meeting with a bunch of agents and you brought a script in with you, they'd go, one because our literary agents and our talent agents are so different entities. They'd be like, "What would I do with this anyway?" And two, there would be a snobbery of like, "You're an actor. What makes you
Who
think
do you think you are?"
Yeah. And I think that's changing. I think that is changing. We can see now that the industry over here is far more open to people being sort of 360-degree creative people. trying to getting your own projects off the ground is the way forward. It's the only way that will, just the idea that you're going to plucked out of a room above a pub and
Yeah.
put into the next James Bond movie is not gigantically likely.
No.
So
Um, what did you? I've got another question. What is it like doing 8 shows a week? What does that have in terms of how does that affect your voice? Because I mean, I used to work as front of house a lot in my 20s, on and off in Western theatres, and a lot of the actors or musical theatre people are working 8 shows a week. So, how how did that affect your voice while you were doing all your fringe shows, etc.? And how did you look
no,
after it?
you have to look after yourself. I mean, uh, yeah, and you have to look after yourself more as you get older as well.
Mm,
When you're 20 something and you're doing 8 shows a week and you're going out afterwards and
loads of
hitting the bar,
energy.
and then you wake up with a little bit of a hangover, but you have a bottle of mineral water and you shake it off. And as you get older, you don't shake it off quite as quick. So
It gets
you need
harder,
to,
doesn't it?
yeah, you need to do more prevention rather than
Yes.
cure as you get older, which means maybe not hitting the hard spirits so much and looking after yourself a little bit more. But it's like most things. The more you do it, the better you get at it. You get used to being able to have the gears and the voice and being able to look after the voice and warming it up correctly and
Yeah,
um,
and all that sort of
stopping it
thing.
with half a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah. um, were you working on anything during the first lockdown that had to be
Well,
postponed? Or were you working on the film
Mark
that
and I
he did
were,
during that one?
yeah. So we were going to do a play together, and the play got cancelled, and then we essentially it's different. It's the same core characters, but they've it's a different circumstance. We had the opportunity to film on a vineyard,
Yeah, he
so
told me this.
so we transposed that play onto a vineyard, but took the same characters and put them into a different situation. And it's called Dead on the Vine, and it should be
Yeah.
finished very soon.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
sure Mark's told you all about it.
Yeah. So who's is he editing that, or has he found someone to edit it
It
for him?
No, it's been edited by Natasha. I've forgotten her surname. Very, very good professional editor. Mark sat in with her, but she is the editor in chief, and they did that a while ago now.
Okay.
It's been at the sort of final push for a while of just doing the grade and the sound edit and the music. So, but
Okay.
the music and the grade are now finished, and it's just the sound mix, and then it will be ready, and we'll be trying to sell it, and
Exciting.
get people to watch it.
um, I had a question for you and it slipped. You know when you have it coming up in your brain and then I was like, oh no, I can't remember what I was going to say. It'll come to. Oh yes. So who were your film influences when you were growing up? So did you have any favorite directors as you were growing up that you might have sort of indulged in? Like Mark was telling me he went through a phase of lots of Quentin Tarantino and trying to write like him.
Yeah,
He was heavily
I think a lot of
influenced.
writers do that.
So was there
Yeah,
anyone that influenced you in the film industry? It can be an actor
yeah.
or film director wise or anything really, cinematographer, etc. When you were
Well, for
growing
me,
up.
my biggest influence pre-drama school was probably Kenneth Branagh and Daniel Day-Lewis. They were my two childhood heroes. Watching Kenneth Branagh's Henry V was probably the no turning back moment of I'd played with the idea of being an actor. I'd also played with the idea of being a fighter pilot or a politician or a superhero. That's what kids do. They change their mind every
Yeah.
5 minutes. But yeah, after seeing Henry V, I was like, wow, the power of it, the language, the rap, the sort of raw emotion of it. Really, I loved it. and really got me onto Shakespeare, and maybe the language, the poetry of it, and being able to express emotions that I had felt but wasn't able to say in beautiful verse, and hearing not somebody speaking beautifully and lyrically, but some being angry while doing it and telling the passion. And but also, Daniel Day-Lewis's performance is also very passionate, but also incredible sort of transformation from different worlds.
Well, he's very
Really,
method actory, isn't he? Like I remember when he did. I mean, I never saw it, but I remember sort of reading stuff and hearing stuff like when he did My Left Foot. Like he was literally when they weren't shooting, he was still in character, asking people to carry him around on the set, basically. So yeah, they're both amazing actors. I'd imagine they were both theatre before, weren't they? More theatre based before they got onto. They have that kind of presence to them, especially their voice.
Yeah, I believe Daniel Day-Lewis got one of his breaks in the theatre just down the road. It's now just I say just. It's not a sort of working theatre. It's a children's education centre as a theatre, as a sort of children resource for Tower Hamlet schools. But it used to be a theatre in itself, where he performed Dracula, and was seen by what's her name, Ros McQueen.
Oh, okay.
She's now the casting director of all the Bond movies.
Oh, wow.
She cast him in My Beautiful Laundrette on the back of Dracula, and that was really the start of his film career.
Okay.
And but he did a lot of theatre until he, of course, his famous on-stage breakdown in Hamlet at the National. So I don't think he's done any theatre since then. He's retired from film now.
Well, he's always kind of quote retiring, and then he comes back for one, and it's okay. This is my last one, isn't he? But it's. I mean, he just got an amazing presence, isn't he? It's hard not to sort of turn off. Do you know what I mean? And sort of because he's just so mesmerizing. Like he literally throws himself into every role. And you're like, this is a completely different person, which is what actors should be doing, really. But he's who were your favorite actors when you were growing up then? So Kenneth Branagh and Daniel Day-Lewis. Did you have any other ones?
Yeah, they were pre-drama school, and then obviously, I saw, Simon Russell Beale. I saw a lot in the theatre and really loved his work. I couldn't understand why I could never see him on film, but thankfully now, after the death of Starling, he's finally getting some more international. I mean, he's had an amazing career, hardly stepping out of the RSC and the National Theatre for the last 30 years, playing every classical leading role available. So he's had a pretty darn good career, but mainly only in the theatre. He was. I was a huge fan of his. So, there were directors, Matthew Warchers, who directed Ian Glenn. Ian Glenn's another actor that I loved growing up. Most people know Ian Glenn from Game of Thrones, but I saw him play Henry V at the RSC, directed by Matthew Watchers, who now runs the Old Vic, who took over the Old Vic from He Should Not Name Spacey.
When did I forgot when Kevin Spacey gave up his. Was it during all the allegations, or was that way before that? I can't remember.
It was luckily before, I think. They'd already done the handover.
Okay.
So it'd come to the end of his
time it was before all of that kicked off. I remember very vaguely, because at the time when he took over, that was when the Old Vic, was it the Old Vic? Was it not the Young Vic, the Old Vic Theatre?
No.
That was when they were they were literally about to shut down, weren't they? And then there was a big thing. So I think Elton John and him were still trying to keep it going, and then eventually he took over, I think. But that was like the early 2000s, I remember.
It's a strange theatre, isn't it, the Old Vic? Well, not strange, but it's just unique and sort of like, it's got this amazing history where it, you know, it was the first home of the National Theatre. You know, Richard Burton played Hamlet there. Peter O'Toole played Hamlet there.
Yeah.
But it's sort of outside the West End, both geographically and financially. But it's too big to be a little arty theatre like the Donmar Warehouse or the Almeida or indeed the Young Vic.
Yeah.
So it in size, it is a big West End theatre, but
Just in a
it's
funny
outside.
location. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's always needed a sort of like, you know, when Laurence Olivier ran it as the National, it's always needed this sort of and
Push.
now well, so Peter Hall ran it for a bit as the Peter Hall Company. I was lucky enough to see Ben Kingsley and Alan Howard do Waiting for Godot. That was
wow.
pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's kind of an old-fashioned rep theatre, but also the size of a West End theatre. So yeah, it's all like most theatres, unless it's got, you know, Mamma Mia in it.
Is it quite? Because I haven't actually seen anything there, but my mum and her partner, they go to the theatre quite a lot because he's a courier. So are you still there, Mark?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought it cut off. Hang on, I'm going to stop and start the next bit. I thought you cut off. Sorry, because I was watching the time on the anchor thing. So,
no, I coughed, so I tried to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, don't worry. All right, so I'll start. That's all right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I can't remember what I was saying. What was I saying?
You were saying your mother go to the Old Vic.
So they've been there, I think, a few times because he's basically like a self-employed courier. So he was always sort of giving out scripts to actors and delivering tickets and stuff. So he used to get quite a lot of freebies. But the Old Vic Theatre is quite an eclectic theatre in the way that their shows vary from all sorts, and it can be maybe musical, and then it can be something like a dramatic thing.
Yeah, I think they do everything really. I mean, they've recently had the tradition of doing a Christmas Carol every Christmas as their sort of panto almost. But yeah, they do all sorts there, and it doesn't tend. I think maybe it doesn't have the. I saw an amazing production of The Weir, which was the follow-up play after. No, not The Weir. Dublin Carol, which came after The Weir by Conor McPherson, the Irish playwright. But it was the theatre was being done up. It had got national lottery money, so the entire theatre, the auditorium, and the stage was all on the stage. And the main auditorium was completely boarded up because it was being redone up.
Okay.
And I think it was pretty much a one-man show, and it was Brian Cox, the great Scottish actor, not the whining astrologer. But yeah, that was pretty. So yeah, it's had a variety of things. And, you know, I recently saw Girl from the North Country, which written by the same playwright, but with the songs of Bob Dylan.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And that transferred to the West End. Yeah, I've seen quite a few things there.
Okay. Yeah.
It's good under Matthew Walters. He's a great director.
So just to let people know, if they don't know, the Old Vic is in Waterloo, isn't it? It's not on the South Bank side, is it? No. I mean, it's quite. I don't know if it's been a long time. Is it on the cut? So is it near the bridge or a little bit further up from
the
Waterloo?
Bridge Theatre? No, Bridge is up by Tower Bridge, isn't it?
No. But is it near Waterloo Bridge?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's been a few years since I've been there, but you tend to see a lot more. Yeah, I do. It's been a while. No, but you tend to sort of pass by a lot the theatres along the South Bank.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
The National is sort of like
the National, etc. Yeah. So, have you been there lately, or have you seen any shows?
I haven't been to National for a while. I saw Rory Kinnear's Macbeth. About was that one of the last things I saw at the National before everything went up, before the balloon went up, before the nastiness started.
Yeah.
So
Can't remember.
yeah, I love the Olivier space. It's huge, but
It's a massive place,
epic.
Yeah.
But now they're now having this new habit of miking the actors in the Olivier, which I think is a real shame, because I think you really miss out on the visceral nature of something being live when the vibration is big enough within an actor. And that space has been there since the 60s, and it was modelled on Greek theatres beforehand. So there's no good reason why an actor can't fill it, apart from laziness.
Yeah.
And, it's not just being louder. I watched a lot of theatre online during lockdown. Amazing performance by Helen McCurry, rest in peace. Amazing actress in The Deep Blue Sea. And she was utterly truthful. And she was in the Littleton Theatre, not in the Olivier, so a different auditorium in the same building. But she's not being theatrical or loud or over the top. But you could tell, even when she was in close-up, it didn't look like she was being theatrical or false. But you could tell that people sat on the back row would have felt her performance. And there were some other actors in it who were not quite as gifted by the hand of talent or not worked as hard as Helen McCrory had. And they were doing this sort of really over the top, not truthful acting, because they felt that they needed to be heard, that get to the back of the room. And there was no truth in it. And I just think if you can make the truth be big enough, you don't have to shout, you don't have to declaim, you just have to be really connected to the truth.
And also that's what an actor's trained for, isn't it? I mean if you think about it, back to Shakespearean days, like where's the original theatre, the Globe Theatre? Where is that again? It's been
on the South Bank too.
It's on the South Bank. So yeah, that was already made, like you said, like a Greek amphitheatre. The Rose Theatre in Kingston, where I live, that was modelled similarly, because
it's sort of a modern version, isn't it?
Yeah, to project the sound. So you think, that's what an actor should be doing. You know what I mean? Because that's how.
And I think when I saw that production of Macbeth, really great actors, Rory Kinnear, Anne-Marie Duff is fucking amazing. But you're sort of hearing an artificially amplified, got this medieval production in this huge amphitheatre, and yet you're hearing the lines coming through a speaker, not from there. And I don't see the point in going to the theatre if they're miking them up.
Yeah,
because you're not having the visceral, physical vibration.
Yeah,
so like the whole point of opera is that it is a physical sensation, and you hear this incredible sound that vibrates you to your core. And the second you mic them up so they can sing quietly, then
you're getting the real.
I've got a Spotify account. I don't need to spend hundreds of pounds to go and watch you live if you're essentially going to pipe it through a speaker.
Yeah. Did you ever watch the play? I can't remember what it is. You probably know what it is. Somewhere in Covent Garden. The Woman in Black.
I've never seen it.
Oh my god, that's an amazing play. I mean, I'm not. I think it's still on. It's one of those things we've been going for ages, but it's
Fortune Theatre.
That's it, the Fortune Theatre. I remember seeing it when I was a teenager in school, because we were studying. It was for our GCSE paper, so we had to write an essay about it. So they sent us all to the theatre, and we were terrified. We were absolutely the first. I mean, I don't want to spoil it for you, but you should definitely watch it. And it's definitely something that works better on stage compared to film. Especially the one with what's his face, the one who did Harry Potter. Didn't work as well. It's just an amazing, and there's only 3 actors on stage, but it's everything. It's the sound, it's the lights, and it's these three actors. It just travels so well, which is why it's done so well and lasted God knows how many years. But have you seen it?
I've not.
You
I
know,
it's one of those one. It's one of those things that if it's around for too long, you just always think it's going to be there, and then
yeah.
you know, it's like having a museum on your doorstep. You never go to it. You know, you
Yeah.
always.
I was going to ask
And
you then if you'd seen it, what did you think about the play version, and then what did you think about the film version?
then,
But you haven't
sorry.
seen any of that, so it's all right. Actually, that brings us on to a good question. What films do you think have done the play justice? If it was originally a play and then been later interpreted onto the screen, can you think
Yeah, I
of
mean,
any?
it's an interesting thing, isn't it? I mean, especially with Shakespeare. You, there's been plenty of modern interpretations, things like Ray Fiennes' Coriolanus, which is very good, but that you do have to have that leap of faith when you've got somebody in modern army fatigues carrying a rifle and then they're talking verse. You kind of just have to accept it, that it will look and sound weird, and then let yourself get into it. Whereas once you're, without getting too wankery, Brecht would talk about the alienation effect of sort of reminding that by not pretending this is real, by
Mm,
saying this is theatre, you let the audience do a bit more work with their imagination,
yeah.
and actually it helps them plunge themselves into it. Whereas if you entirely, try and pretend that it's the difference between sort of like truth and real, you should be truthful, but the idea of, you know, uh, great drama is, pulling that elastic of, the humdrum of a sort of EastEnders episode doesn't pull the elastic of believability,
Mm,
and when you're doing something huge, whether that be Shakespeare or even, a Marvel film, you're really, because the idea of somebody fighting somebody while wearing tights and a cape, you're really stretching that elastic of believability. You're
yeah.
not in the world of EastEnders, are you? You're in
No,
a
no.
heightened world, and you have to. And sometimes there can be, a misjudgment of that, I think, and that's why I think Shakespeare doesn't always work on screen.
Okay.
There are other plays that have done very.
Can you
Sidney
think of any
Lumet's
examples?
Sidney Lumet's Long Day Journey into Night is great. During lockdown, I watched Death Trap with Michael Caine and
Okay.
Christopher Reeve. Oh, what a wonderful film that is!
I have to
Because
watch
that's
it.
it's amazing. It's a small little play, four-hander, and it's it's a type of play that would have played month in, month out in regional little theatres all over Britain and North America, in little sort of rep theatres in community spaces. You just need four, maybe it's only three actors, maybe four.
Wow, so it's a
And
really small
it's
cast.
so good. Oh, it's a brilliant film.
I have to give it a
Death
watch.
Trap. Give it a go. Give it
Oh,
a go.
definitely. Can you think of
George
any other plays that have transcended really well onto film?
plays the film. I've
Well, what
already
about?
mentioned it.
I'm thinking of one. To Kill a Mockingbird. Was that a play first, or was
Well, it was a
that?
novel first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think it was a novel, then a film, and now gets done as a play as well. But it
Okay.
was a novel originally.
Oh, I've just thought of one. I've just thought
Go
of
on.
one. 12 Angry Men.
Also, Sidney Lumet. Well done. Look at you.
That was a
Famous Long
play.
Day Journey into Night.
That was
Yeah.
a play, wasn't it, originally?
Yep.
And I saw the film. I mean, I'd love to see it actually as a play. A friend of mine
Little
saw it.
facts for you.
Go on.
More actors have been nominated for Academy Awards when directed by Sidney Lumet than any other director in the history of film.
Really? Wow.
That's a real
Testament to the
test of the
director.
directors, that actors are all doing their best work in their career.
Yeah.
That must be a pretty special man to have,
Yeah.
brought out,
But
these amazing performances. Are, whether it was Sean Connery or Al Pacino or Paul Newman, they all did their best work for Sidney Lumet.
yeah. So because I remember I saw it during the last lockdown. Because when you hear about all these films, you're like, I never get round to watching them. So I'm going to watch all these classics that I've heard so much about and never actually watched. So I watched it, and to be honest, I didn't think I'd be that impressed by it. But it's such a simple concept that these 12 men from, well, you explain the story. These 12 men that are on a jury, aren't they, basically?
Yeah.
And they're basically in a room, and they have to all give a fair verdict on a case that's been, and nothing, there's no action quote, it's not like Marvel or anything, but it's just amazing dialogues and amazing actors, really, isn't it?
Well, there is action. It's just not physical action, psychological action. One character is trying to do something to another character. That's the same whether you're in the cherry orchard and you're playing Le Parking and you're trying to make Ranisky sell the cherry orchard. That's your action.
Yeah.
Make her sell the cherry orchard. Because
Yeah.
otherwise she is going to be poor. And you do not want to see her die in poverty.
No.
Her pride is stopping her selling the cherry orchard. And so you have to play that objective with the same visceral nature as if you're playing McClane in Die Hard, and your action is to stop a plane blowing up.
Yeah.
It's still an action. It's still an objective.
Yeah.
And when something like 12 Angry Men is exciting, when a theatrical production is exciting, it's where you see, oh, he just bullied that guy. Oh, he charmed that guy. You see the tennis ball go between them, and you see them having an effect on each other. Like it's a verbal fight. You're seeing the different psychological means that I can manipulate. I want to go home, so I want this court case to be over.
Yeah.
So I need you all to agree that he's guilty. So I'm going to do my best to make you change your vote because I want to go home. It's different to somebody else going, I utterly believe this man is innocent and I will not leave here. I don't care if we're here for 3 days. I don't believe he's guilty. And you have those people going at it. That is action. It's just action that's verbal, not somebody in tights hitting another man over the head with a skyscraper.
Do you know what's funny, actually? I remember doing jury service in 2010, and I think I maybe very loosely heard of 12 Angry Men, but I never watched it or anything. But then when I did the jury service, I was in a jury and I was in the room, and obviously I won't talk about the case. To be honest, I can't even remember. It was such a long time ago. But I can't remember how many there were of us. So what we did was we went round the circle to give, at the very beginning, one of us said, okay, so why don't we go around the circle and give our individual, what do you call it?
Opinions.
Verdict. The verdict, that's it. So we were going around saying guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. So everyone was saying, except for one guy. One guy. And it's kind of funny because it does kind of feel like that dynamic. Like you do think, oh, for goodness sake, come on. Like, let's just go. Let's just go.
We could be in the pub now.
Yeah, no.
I want that first gin and tonic.
But then at the same time, like you said, this is someone else's life. So you can't be like, oh, I mean, we all took it seriously, obviously. But then to actually get this one person to swing his opinion around, to think, actually, do you know what I mean? That was the very frustrating part, because we all thought about it, obviously, and you got one person that you have to, like you say, like you're just trying to get him to say yes, and it's not happening. So you could kind of understand the dynamics of that film of, you know, there's ones that don't want to be there. There's ones that are obviously taking it very seriously, and then the ones, yeah, it's a really good film, and it's just so interesting to see it in such a small room. It's quite isolating, isn't it? Because it's got
Yes.
this kind of sort of
Yeah.
so there's nowhere they can go. They have to all come to a conclusion in order to leave. And what's good about the end of that film is that they never see each other again. They all go off to their own
Oh,
lives afterwards.
yeah.
So you do kind of
It's
ones that
yeah.
stayed with them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I can't imagine that. Well, one of the questions that one as an actor should ask yourself, you know, is why is this an important story? And well, one, you know, what is this play about? But what is it about to the character that you're playing?
Mm,
So that the play as a whole could be about the justice system. It could be about justice, or you know, finding the truth. But what is it to your character, and why is it important? So if you're playing, I mean, it's not really a question you have to ask yourself if you're playing a waiter in one episode of whatever, you
mm,
know. But if you're a major character in a play, it's good to think about is why is this the most important day in this person's life?
mm,
Otherwise, why are you telling the story? Why do we care?
yeah,
And they've got to be all of those 12 men, although nowadays it can be done with women, and you know they you play around with the gender on all of
sure,
these things nowadays. They are from a convention of another time, but
yeah,
all of those 12 men should really have a life lesson. They should come out of that room being different people as they walked into it. You see these people, the scales falling from their eyes. Their reappraisal of justice, of truth, of what's fair in life, what's not fair, and then you witness something. On, you know, you're not just there hearing. Once upon a time, a man was on trial. 12 men decided whether he should go to jail or not. The end.
yeah,
You see something happen to these men, having a pinnacle moment for the rest of their life. They were one way before this day, and then they were a different way after that day.
mm,
And then you're seeing something that that's when it starts to become, without wanting to use with it, in the absence of a more pretentious term, that's when it starts to be really sort of art, really sort of like seeing something monumental
mm,
rather than just a nice story.
yeah. So you mean more like the cause and effect,
Well,
sort of
yeah, but
sort of
yeah, I
a
mean,
chain.
yeah, the cause and effect is the action of it. Is I
Okay.
mean, sometimes just a rip roaring plot is enough. What happens next? What happens next? But if you're just watching 12 people talk in a room,
That
what
wouldn't
is it?
really keep you gripped,
I
would it?
recently saw Martin McDonagh's first play. They've revived it at the Hammersmith Lyric, The Beauty Queen of Lenan, and it it's essentially about a daughter becoming like the mother she hates,
Really?
and
That
how
sounds
she
really interesting.
um, and I thought the play was amazing, but I wasn't quite as shook by it
Mm,
as somebody who I was with, who one was a woman, and therefore closer to the character, but two had a similarly problematic relationship with her mother.
mm.
So for her, for me, it was an impressive piece of writing and an incredible thing to watch. But for her, it was, you know, a scalpel in the soul.
Well, I guess
Uh,
because she could identify with it
yeah,
more, couldn't she?
yeah,
So that would make a lot of sense. No, it is really clever how film and stage can, when done properly, can leave you kind of feeling a certain way, and it kind of stays with you for a long period of time. So you should go out, I think, after watching something, be it film or anything that's on stage,
mm,
with a question mark, and leaving you to think, for yourself. How would
Sure.
I behave in that situation? Or I wonder what happened to that person afterwards. You know what I mean? Which is
but it doesn't always have to be entertaining as well. I mean, some things are just sheer entertainment, but you know, some things can rock you and make you think about things differently.
Yeah.
And they're not going to have that sort of poignant impression on somebody
Yeah.
if you, as the creators, the directors, the actors, haven't thought about, one, what is this about? What's the point of us telling this story? And two, why is it important? And, you know, you see somebody, you know, another Sidney Lumet movie, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. Great final performance from Philip Seymour Hoffman, or one of his final performances. And it's about people's, like, I saw The Counselor. That's a different, probably a film that more people have seen.
Yeah.
With Michael Fassbender,
Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz.
Was Penelope Cruz in it as well, I think?
Penelope Cruz. Yeah. It's directed by Ridley Scott, and essentially,
I didn't realise.
Essentially about the consequences of greed.
Okay.
So you see what happens. You know, it's an almost biblical tale of how dramatically these people that have perfect lives are destroyed by greed, by avarice. And it's not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination, but it's it can leave you in a sort of like, wow, yeah, you really. There are more things important in life than just wanting more money.
Yeah.
And the lengths to go to get more money might be what ends up with you ending up being in a landfill site.
Yeah.
So it sounds so trite to say what's the moral of the tale, but I think that's not a bad way to start when you're on day one of rehearsals of a play or a film. What's the point in this? And there are the 2 points. One, what is the point of the whole play? And two, what is the point to my character? What happened? Why do we need to know this man or woman's story?
Yeah. Okay. So is there anything you want to say? I mean, we're sort of coming to the end of the show. So is there anything you want to talk about or raise up before we wrap it up?
I can be seen nearly every Thursday night at the Backyard Comedy Club in Bethnal Green.
Awesome.
I'm a lot funnier when I'm doing stand up than when I'm talking about high art.
Okay.
A lot funnier when I'm telling jokes about my willy than when I'm talking about why a film can change your life.
Where can we buy tickets?
Backyardcomedyclub.com.
Okay, awesome. So that's a good
I haven't been, since the pandemic, I've not been keeping my website up to date with details, but I do have a website, davidwhitney.org, but I'm also on Instagram and Twitter. Awesome. And I try and keep those up to date. You can see Guardians. It's on Amazon and iTunes and Sky and Hulu. And look out for Dead on the Vine.
Awesome. Thank you, David. And feel free to come back and do like a themed show, like when we did with Mark. We did his favorite 90s film. So if you want to do one of that'd be great.
Well, we should come and talk about Dead on the Vine when it's finished.
Do that. That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. Cool. Thank you. And if you ever want to come back again, feel free to come back again. That'd be great. Thank you so much, David. It's been lovely talking to you.
Got to phone my mum back now.
Yeah, go phone her back. And open your delivery.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's not very exciting stuff. I have to stop moths eating my clothes.
That's also important. All right. Thank you, David.
Cheers. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.